Hi, welcome to Hope and the Light of Suicide. You got me laughing. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder and CEO of the Bobby White Foundation.
I'm Bonni Snyder, I guess, laugh maker in chief. I'm your co-host. Oh my God, we have so much. I think people wonder, like when, we hear that countdown from the control side of the things, and it's like one, and we either have just said something or something will happen, and this is burst of laughter. We're like, you guys got to understand you guys have any idea what goes on behind the scenes before,
Just prior to, and you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But we want to welcome you, and we want to, of course, thank Area 52 Media Group and our tech guy, Cage, at the controls today. And also our sponsor, DeLynn Gaston with the mortgage firm. The best mortgage person. Of course, I'm biased, and you're biased.
But, and not unapologetically biased.
No, not at all. We want to thank them for their support and their love. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here doing this every week. Almost every week. Mostly every week for the last year and a half.
I think even when we're
2.5.
It's been 2.5 years. We were talking about that earlier. And, and I think even, even when we're not here, we're here because there's still stuff that goes on with the show, even though we are not physically in the studio filming.
Well, you'll still get a show.
Right, exactly.
So,
exactly.
But anyways, so we're at the beginning of summer. And I texted you earlier in the week and said, "What are we gonna do?" I was just like, I don't know. And you came up with an awesome. We had mentioned it on the last show, and we've never done this before. Done a show like this one before with this theme at this time of year.
We haven't. And to your point, it's interesting. I was trying to, figure out, how do you segue from, our last show where, it was totally dedicated to Patrick because, we were filming on his birthday. Mm-hmm. And, I'm like, how can I do this? So I think, last week's show, the last show and then this one, it is a little bit of a departure from what we typically do. However, it continues with the flow and the reason why we do what we do.
Well, and it's not totally. It's just a time of season that we haven't typically focused on.
Right, and when I say departure from what we typically do, I think what I'm looking at is there are times where we. I don't think we've ever expanded like this. I don't think we've ever done a total dedication show before that I can think of. Yeah.
Nah, not totally.
Yeah, we've never had a total dedication. Yeah. We've had a remembrance and this, that, and the third, but I don't think we've ever had a total dedication. But then we've never had a taping that fell on
that person's like Patrick's birthday.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in looking at this, I was tickled. Because I'm on a medical break from work because of the knee, not because I was the sickness, not the COVID sickness, but I was on a knee break. But as I was, looking at, so when you text me, it was like, so what do you want to do for the show? And I was like, whoa, let me think about this for a moment. And I did think it was very appropriate that, we focus on, going into summer, because you're right, we've never done a show that was dedicated to the different theme. Well, actually, let me take that back. We talked a lot about the holidays because we do the
holidays. We have and springtime,
and we've done anniversaries, but we've never. You're right. We've never done summer because I think most people don't think about summer and, as a focus time for grief, because again, it's not the holidays, it's not. But, to kind of kick this off, and thinking that, when we're thinking about summer like the holidays, is that our emotions, can tend to become a little more intense, because, here, how many times have we heard people say, I'm out, I'm having a good time, and, oh, wait a minute, I feel guilty because if I'm having a good time, am I, what's the word I'm looking for? I hate when I lose words like this.
It's too harsh of a word, but disrespecting.
That's
the memory,
the word I was looking for.
To me, it's too harsh of a word.
It is a harsh word, but it's funny. I was like, "What's the word I'm looking for?" And then when you said disrespect, it was like, "That's the word I'm looking for." Because I wanted to, hit on that word. I'm disrespecting the memory of the person that I lost. How many times, we said, on the show, or people were talking about, like, I'm somewhere and I'm having a good time, and then it's like, how dare I have a good time? Mm-hmm. This person, like, you don't have this person is not with you anymore.
And that's what typically summertime is kind of like about. People are gathering together and having barbecues, mm-hmm. or, going to the beach or going out on the boat. Of course, in Florida, it's almost summertime year round, but it's still, the kids are out of school, so, and I did notice a gal that we had on the show a few weeks ago, Joan, who lost her daughter, it hasn't even been a year, it'll be a year in September, and she's got the grandkids, which is her daughter's, couple of them are two of her daughter's children, and they're going out, they're taking the kids out, which is good, and it's distracting for the kids, and it's kind of distracting partially for her, but then I can see how hard it is too,
yes.
Because they're doing that and they're having a good time, but it's painful at the same time.
It is, especially like you bring up barbecues, and I love a good barbecue just like anybody else, but for me, barbecues have like a bittersweet kind of meaning, and connotation to them, because again, June, it's Pat's birthday, and it was interesting because Patrick was funny. About, what do you want to do for your birthday? And again, we've shared this before. And he was like, I don't want to do anything. What it is it was a reverse, and I didn't realize he was doing a reverse psychology thing. I was like, I'm going to say nothing, but I want to see what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, it's like, you can't do reverse psychology on me. Being in the field, it was like, how do you do reverse psychology on somebody whose degree is psychology? Like, this doesn't work. I got this respect for boundaries, and so if you tell me you don't want to do anything, why am I going to ever set a boundary? And versus my daughter, his sister, it's like, what do we do for your birthday? Oh, I want to, it's like, $1,000 party. But anyway, when I think about barbecues, one of the last birthday party we had for Patrick, he was like, let's just do a barbecue. And, it was Pat, myself, a couple of his friends came over, my daughter, her kids and whatnot. It was very interesting because it rained that day. And, we're like, this sucks. And I'm thinking, this sucks. We're going to have this barbecue on his birthday and it's raining. And so what we did is we took, before I had the grill that I have now, I had this little charcoal grill. But we moved the grill from the back patio to the front of my house and had it sitting like right, like on the inside of the garage, mm-hmm. just enough where it's in the garage where we're shielded from the rain, but not so far into the garage that we're,
you're going to get smoke inhalation.
Exactly. But I remember, Patrick saying that was like the best birthday party ever. It was small, it was intimate, and I was like, really? And so we've, taken to every year, during his birthday, it's like, that was his, so that's how, kind of we honor. But, again, as we're talking about, summer and whatnot, much like everything where we're, dealing with grief in these psychological toll it takes on us. I mean, again, we're thinking that, for this particular show, let's, talk about some tips and some ideas on dealing with, summertime grief, and, how different people process it, and, again, how, we're looking at it from the time, from the aspect of, a bunch of other people, we look at people, running around, hoop and hollering and having a good time, and we're like, I wish that I could, hoop and holler like that. But at the same time, recognizing that, it's okay to hoop and holler. It's okay to, it's not disrespectful or not honoring, the person, that's gone. Because, as a cousin said to me, you're still here. You have other kids, and at the time, I'm like, did I really appreciate, it's like, I appreciated what she was saying to me, because I know the spirit in which she meant it. At the same time,
Right.
It's like, I don't want to hear this right now. Like, yeah, I get it. And we'll talk about this. And so, it talks about, planning, or we're going to talk a little bit about, planning and just getting through, how do you deal with, again, with summertime grief.
Kate, do you want to pull up we'll go ahead and start with that, the images from the PowerPoint. Yeah, there we go.
So, again, our show today, we're going to focus on, summertime grief during summer celebrations, because as you said, because people are going to the beach.
You get 4th of July coming up.
Yes.
Right, okay, when this show airs, it'll just be the beginning of summer. And you got 4th of July, the first holiday of summer.
Right. So let's do our first, the next one. Next slide it is. Number 2. There we go. So it says, don't let other people determine what you should or shouldn't do. And, I think this is a really good tip, because, it says, I can look at you all day long and say, Tammy, you shouldn't blah, 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 blah. And, it's kind of like the joke we have going between us. Who is she to tell me?
Right.
Like, how does she tell us, like, please don't dictate, my grief timeline. People will, and if I go back to my cousin, for example, this insistence to, he's gone, let it go, move on.
Live on. Right.
Focus on the fact that you have other children. Yes, I have other children. Or if I do kind of a flip and say, like, from my own perspective, like, the times that I was guilty of telling people what to do, like, I was upset. I will say, yeah, there was a part of me that was upset, but I was trying to process why my daughter didn't visit, didn't come to my house as frequently as she used to. And I was bothered by this, I was kind of upset with her, like, why aren't you coming over over this? And it wasn't until, a couple of years, it's like we're going to year 4 that Pat's been gone. But, she was like, it's hard coming to your house. And I'm like, okay, why? Because he's not there. But I also had to process, it's when I remodeled Patrick's room, I didn't realize that Patrick wore a lot of ball caps. And we had this chain, and like I said, we may have talked about this before, this chain that hung in his room. He was like, Mom, I need some place to display my hats, because he's meticulous about, his clothing, and everything had to match. And, if the brim of his ball cap, crinkled in any way, shape, or form, the ball cap got thrown away and he got a new one. Or, he'd figure out how to, make it perfect again. Well, anyway, I'd gotten this chain, and we had, fashioned all of his ball caps, and they would hang, like from the ceiling out the corner. And my daughter was like, this is not his room anymore. Like, you didn't hang his caps back up. And I'm thinking to myself, on one hand, I'm like, well, he's not here. And that where don't people tell you what you shouldn't do? And I'm looking at my daughter, I was like, who are you to tell me what I should do in his room? But then I had to sit back and think about it. Well, wait a minute now. It's not about me. It is, now I understand why it was hard for her to come over, because something about the ball caps hanging in his room made it, he was almost like, she said it was almost like I erased him from the house. And I'm like, no, he's moved from that room. He's now occupying the living room now. But I used that as a good example of understanding that where my daughter was like, I should have hung the caps back up. I'm thinking, well, I didn't have to hang the caps back up. But then having respect for it, I understand now what how you feel about it.
Right. And my in-laws, they don't come over to the house. I haven't seen, several of them in several years. I'll see them at Christmas time, or either the young ones, nieces and nephews' birthdays or something. But it's hard particularly two of them. My one sister-in-law and my one brother-in-law. It's hard for them, and so they don't come and visit. And then the next time they do come and visit, oh my goodness, because I'm changing things in the house.
Yeah, and again, it's like one of those things where, and I don't think the intention was to invoke guilt, but it's almost like I feel sometimes, but at the same time, there is that feeling of, are you trying to make me feel guilty because, like for me, and going back to remodeling Patrick's room, we started this project before he left.
Right.
And, of course, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, would this room be different? Or what would be different if he was not here? Because the other side of it is, he lived at home. And, he was like, he loved living at home. At the same time, he would say to himself, or he would say to me, I can't wait to be in my own spot. I can't wait to be in my own spot. Well, you're in your own spot.
Right.
You have this side of the house, I have this side of the house. At the same time, though, I think, he'd had this plan that eventually he was going to, move out into his own place. And, I would tell people, I was like, I wanted my house to myself, just not like this.
Not this way.
'Cause I don't have my house to myself, anymore. But it's like, again, don't let other people determine for you what you shouldn't do. It's your timeline.
Yeah, and you're the only one that knows what's right for you.
Exactly.
Nobody else can even know that.
Right. Right. I think sometimes it happens, or it comes across with good intentions.
Oh yeah.
And whatnot. Depending on. And I look.
But then it depends on the person.
yeah. There were some persons, but then I also am. I tell myself to be mindful of, well, if that advice is coming from this person, and in my head I was like, this person does not have my best intentions.
Right.
I might say this might be that one time where they do have, my best intent,
Right.
or they're doing it for, my best intentions. And, I have to ignore, it's like, don't shoot the messenger.
Right.
Like, ignore the messenger and focus on the message.
Right.
So, let's move to our next one, please.
Accept limitations.
Yeah, so this one where it's like you may not be able to do everything that you have always done. And I think, when I look at that one and I think of, accepting limitations and whatnot, I think back, again, I use remodeling, my house as an example for this one, because there was a time where, in the beginning, I couldn't go into Patrick's room. Like, I would go by the room, and sometimes I would put the blinders on, and for me it was very. There was an ease, not ease is not the word I want to use. I had an excuse not to have to go by his room because, if you're looking at my floor plan, so my living room is in, let's call my living room the central part of my house. Well, as you come through my living room around the corner, this hallway right here is the hallway that's Patrick's room. the main bathroom in the house. Devon's room is, on the, the end of that particular hallway. So you're back in my living room. You come around this way, there's a little, the entrance way. That's my bedroom. So for me, I could almost draw this imaginary line at the hallway that went down to, that past Patrick's bedroom. I didn't have to go to it. Now if I go into my Florida room, it's like he's double glass doors, off of his room. I see his room, but there are the vertical blinds. So again, I never had to go in his room. When I finally got up the nerve, courage, gumption, whatever you want to call it, to be able to go into his room, it's like, okay, all right. I think it was after the interview that I did with Evan. Of course, that was, after that November. But I said to Evan that day, little by little, I'm able to come into this room. And then one day I was like, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to do it. But then I went from one extreme to, I can't do this, and like strict, engraved in stone limitations, to this extreme. Now I wanted to do everything all at once, strip everything up. I want this room to be done. But then I was, it's almost like a pendulum swing. Over here to the extreme, I wanted to do it all. And I allowed that pendulum swing to come back to the center. And it's like, okay, I'm going to remodel this room. I'm going to work on this project that he and I started before he left. And I'm going to do it a little at a time. And what I found in, accepting and setting those limitations for myself, then not only did it make the remodel manageable, although it did lead to me remodeling my entire house. But even starting there, it was like, okay, you know what? I could do this bit by bit, and it made the project more cathartic than it did putting more stress and angst on me. Than I'm doing this room and he's not here to say, I want this here. Or, I don't want this color. Or, I hope you're okay with the fact that I decided to go with carpeting instead of, the laminate floor, the wood floor that, we had thought about. I hope you're okay with, I didn't go with these two colors. I was like, what do you think about this? But I went with this color. And at the same time, keeping the same close to color scheme that he had, his room.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, I'm continually going through something similar, with our house. I started on our front living room, which I don't need, and that's what I started turning into the foundation office. Well, I started doing that like 3.5, 4 years ago, and did the same thing, not changing anything for years. I couldn't change anything. And then starting to change that and going gangbusters at first, but then I start freaking out and I stop. And then I stop for like 3 years. And then this year, it's like, I just put it in my head. I said, okay, give yourself this whole year. Just give yourself this whole year and finish the foundation office. We got the ceiling fixed in the bathroom, working my way through. And one of the things that kind of helped me was, especially when it came to the kitchen, which the kitchen is a whole nother thing, but I had to get new appliances. So in my head, I'm telling myself as I'm doing these changes that, well, they'd have to be done if he was alive anyways, because the refrigerator was going, the dishwasher was going, the washer and dryer is getting ready to go. So it's things that would have to have been done anyways. And trying to get my head into that. Now I still have those issues a little bit, but instead of stopping for 3.5 years, it's maybe 3.5, 4 weeks, and then starting up again and making it easier, And through the summertime, it's hard because it's so hot outside. You can only do so much outside, and that was his thing, was the outside, but. Oh, yeah.
And I think, you hit a nail on the head when you said these things would be done or these things would be happening if he were still here. And I think for me, that is, I find myself like, if he were here, then what? And again, it's like I joke about, the garage. Like, my garage is a mess again. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm looking at things like, again, things that I should, one of my favorite TV personalities is Stephen Colbert. And he does this questionnaire, and one of the questionnaire things, one of the questions on this 15-question list that he has is, what is something that you own that you should throw out? And the first time I heard this question, I'm chuckling, and I was like, if you only knew, I was like, I can answer that question. But I sit back and I think about, things that are in my garage that I should throw out, but I don't. And in my head, I hear Patrick saying, Mom, why are you holding on to this stuff? But it's like, but I can't. I know I shared this before. I had this pathetic little mop, or at least he thought it was pathetic. The mop that I used to wash my floors with. And he comes home one day and he has this, larger mop, that your hands don't have to touch the mop head and whatnot. And I loved this thing. And he was like, "Here, Mom, I bought you a new mop." And, of course, most of them were like, "Really, you bought me a mop?" But I understood it. But anyway, I'm washing the floor one day, and it broke. The handle snap. It was metallic. But I've had this mop for a couple of years now, but it broke, and I panicked. And there was oh my God, I can't throw this mop away. And people were like, Bonnie, it's a mop. Yes, but Patrick gave it to me. And I could see if he were here, he would be like, Mom, throw the mop away. We'll get another one. But it's looking at these limitations. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I think I finally was like, all right, here's the handle. So I threw the handle. It's like I did throw the handle away 1 week. And it's like, okay. And then I'll throw the mop head of itself the next week. Again, we do these in little chunks and pieces.
Well, and accepting the limitations isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not.
It's so scale back, because even I see friends out doing stuff, having a great time in the summertime, going out to the sandbar or doing whatever. But if you just don't feel it, you don't have to be there to do it. You got to do what's comfortable for you, because we've done it where you go from one extreme to the other, and that doesn't feel good either.
Right.
And you end up coming all the way back, and your life has changed. It's not going to be that fun in the sun all the time. Mm-hmm. You'll get there in time, in your
or even
time.
when you are having the fun in the sun, it's a little different. Like for me, again, if I think back, like going to the beach, all right? Well, it's summertime, and because, we're in Florida. We go to the beach all the time.
Beach yeah.
However, when I think about going to the beach, it's like, what was one of the, and I'm looking at what was the last things that I did with, and again, if I think of Pat, or even, if I pull Aiden into this conversation, what are some of the last things I did with Aiden? Oh, they came here. What do you do in Florida? You go to the beach. And I think about, here I am, at the beach. And there were many times that I would go to the beach with friends, and Pat would not be there. But the last time we all went, it was like, remember the last time we were here was when he was with us. And, again, when I'm looking at, changing things that we've done in the past or looking at things differently, it's like, okay, so the change is I'm at the beach, he's not here. What is something that I know that he would enjoy at the beach that, say, I wouldn't typically do, but we would do and honor him? Or even if it's, not at the beach, like Patrick's favorite drink was, one of his favorite drinks was Corona. Really never a fan of Corona. I don't particularly care for beer per se. However, for me, I've made it okay I'm going to have a Corona for Pat, and it's a way of keeping him close.
Oh, I do that when I go to the Inn on the Gulf, and in August, which is my birthday and our anniversary. So that's one thing I'll do to go and celebrate. And I order what I typically have. What do I have? Drambuie on the rocks. That's the only time I ever drink it, probably the only place I ever drink it. But I also order a Budweiser, and I have the Budweiser sat right there. Once in a while, I'll take a sip out of it. Most of the time, it just sits there open until I leave. But I've done that every year, whether it be at In on the Golf, or one time we went with some friends to down the docks in Tarpon. And, there was a bunch of us. It was closer to the time right after Bobby had passed. And we had a chair for Bobby, and I had a Budweiser for him. Even with all those people, it's just like, this is exactly what we do.
No, and it's nice, and you're right. When we get to one of the other slides, I'm sure that will come up again.
Yeah, that's part of it. I had to say it before I forgot it.
That's fine. Let's see our next tip, which is be informed before attending events. And what I found with this one is, people don't think about, wait a minute, what do I need to be informed about before I attend events? And what I liked about this one is, knowing who's going to be there, how long are you going to be there, is there anything that I need to do to prepare for the event, or should I not go altogether? And then one thing, again, when I think about, the people that I do things with, my circle of friends, having people that understand and acknowledge when I say, I don't want to do this, or, I'm not feeling this right now, I don't want to go. I did a thing, the other morning, I'm thinking back to our last show, where I was having a mini meltdown in the house. This is going back some years, and it was right after Pat was gone. That same year, I was having a mini meltdown, and I had posted on my page, I'm having a meltdown. And my best friend Craig, he either sent me a text message or he private messaged me, come over now. Come to the house, come over to my house now. And, he's my neighbor, so it's just a matter of me walking out my front door. The joke is 10 paces. Well, he says it's more than 10 paces, it's more like 100 paces. But anyway, but it's, walking out of my house, crossing, my front lawn, the neighbor's driveway, and then, getting, to get into his house. So we're literally that close. And, that particular day, we sat down and we poured a cup of coffee and we were talking. And so, again, last week, I happened to look out. He was on vacation. And I sent him a text message. It's like, when I'm having a meltdown, you're supposed to be at home with a cup of coffee. And, he joked back, as he was, had gone to, Wawa or something. But he joked back and he was like, I didn't see the bat signal. So I'm joking, I was like, and actually, in the translate, it was spelled BST, and I know the S is right next to the A, so I know what happened, and he corrected, and I was like, no, you meant bat signal. But anyway, we joked about this for a while, and when it's like okay to avoid people at events that would trigger, unpleasant emotions is, kind of what this is, the thing it's saying about avoiding events. But anyway, so, he was like, hey, do you want anything from Wawa? And I was like, yeah, bring me a nice coffee, a small one. Anyway, so I walked across the lawn and we're sitting and we were reminiscing about, that time when, he was like, come over. And, so we started talking back and forth about, the day before Patrick left and how people had saw him and said he was off. And, and of course for me, going back to, don't tell people what you should or shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. In, the mental health profession, we tell people like stay away from the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. At the same time, it's impossible not to do the coulda, shoulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
And, as I was talking about this, the issue is there's a difference between if this dynamic would have changed would this have happened? And being stuck in, I could have changed this dynamic. So there's a difference between the if this, would that. I told her,
Yeah, but then it could be, if not now, then when?
and that reminds me of when we think back, a few years ago when we had Carl on the show, and we asked Carl, and he was like,
Yeah.
would we have prevented it for another day, another week, another
Exactly.
year, and whatnot? And
that's what we've had that conversation about Bobby, too.
Yeah, and I get that, because I was telling, Craig and I were talking about the ability to, I don't want to do something, I'm not doing it. And how did he put it? I said, if I would have looked at you that day and said, no, I don't want to come over. He was like, I don't know that I would have come over. He goes, like back then, we were just, developing our friendship. He goes, I don't know that I would have walked across the lawn and knocked on the door and said, no, you need to come out. And he goes, now, fast forward, here we are 4 years later, and, his son cracked me up. Because he was like, it's funny. He goes, when you talk about my dad, you say that he's your best friend. When he talks about you, he calls you the neighbor. Because we looked at each other. I died. His son is 11. I
that's
died
too
laughing.
funny.
And I'm like, that is funny. He was like, yeah, you call him your best friend. He calls you the neighbor. So that little aside, But anyway, what he was saying is now that, we are each other's best friend, he goes, now if I look at him and say, I don't want to be bothered. He has a key to my house. He was like, oh no, I'd walk across the lawn. He was like, I'd knock on and bang on your door. And I said, no, you'd probably look at me as like, well, I don't care that you're telling me you don't want to talk to me. I got a key, I'll come in.
Right.
And it was like to see if you're okay.
Right.
But it does depend on the person.
It does. And, too, you got to take time for self-care during this time because, and I've seen it, like, we talk about people going to the beach and blah, blah, blah. Well, Bobby was a land surveyor. So summertime was like the worst time of year for him to work because it was so hot. And he would come home and surveying wasn't the only profession because even our UPS driver told me the same thing and a couple other people that are in industries that work outside. We weren't big beach goers because I didn't think it was fair to go sit in the hot sun on the weekends when he spent the last 5 days or 4 days, 10-hour days in the sun. He'd come home tired and cranky, and the best thing to do is feed him and put him to bed, and it can be that way for just everybody because it is so hot in the summertime, and it can be physically and mentally draining just because it's summertime, along with all your other emotions that you're feeling and you're trying to do because of the time of the year. And for us, it may not be as dynamic because we live in Florida. It's almost summertime year round. But for somebody who lives up north and you get summer is smashed into just a few months, and there's a lot there to try and sift through and be all you can be and take care of yourself and have fun, and it can be a lot. So
it can be, and again, I think it is important to recognize those events that would that trigger the unpleasant emotions. At the same time, going back to using the beach for example, there are times that if Craig's wife, for instance, she loves the beach. She grew up in Brazil, and she was like, I lived on the beach. And I mean, I grew up in Jersey. I lived on the shoreline, so the beach was, but there are times where it's like, what, I really want to go to the beach, soak up the sun, get the vitamin D and whatever other vitamins that you get, and, the air, and you're hearing the waves and everything like that, where it's very calming and soothing. I also recognize that there are times where it's like, hey, let's go to the beach. You know what, I don't want to go to the beach because I remember this was one of the last things that we did as a group with Pat.
Right.
And you know what? Right now, today, that beach experience is unpleasant. I'm going to take the hard pass.
Right.
The next time, even though he's not here, you know what? I'm going to go and take in the cathartic, feeling of that often comes with going to the beach.
Right.
So you talked about, this is our next slide, Gage, please. Which is take time for self-care. And you nailed it when you said summertime can be physically and emotionally draining, due to the hot weather. And that sometimes, the more time that we spend outside, and the fact that during the summertime the days are longer, it can be draining when, along with that, you're processing, the emotions that comes along with, having lost someone. And so, when we're talking about, self-care, it's important that, we continue to acknowledge, getting rest, making sure that you're eating, staying hydrated, giving yourself a break, surrounding yourself with a really good support system, and also taking time to recharge. And how we recharge is going to differ from person to person. Like, for me, I'm a loner. I've always been a loner.
Yeah, me too.
People would look at me as like, you're alone. I'm a popular loner. It's sort of like, yes. I have I have my tight circle of friends. I have a larger, then I have the larger circle of friends. Like, some people look at me like, I can name 100 people that said they know you and they love you. Okay, and I appreciate that, and I love them too. At the same time, I'm still a loner by nature.
You enjoy your own time and your own company,
and that's my recharge time.
And that's the way it was with Bobby and I as a couple. We didn't have to go out and be with people all the time. Which ended up being, I guess, good for me in the end, is we enjoyed just being at home together. And I still am that way because, well, number one, I don't feel like I'm totally alone anyways. I still feel that he's there. But then, too, like you, I still have those people you wouldn't think. I've got all these groups I'm a member of, these things that we're always out there doing, with the community stuff on top of, work and everything else. But my alone time is my recharge time too. I like my own company.
Well, and I think for me, again, recharging looks different for everybody. Like you, I like, my solitude when I go at home. Like, I walk in my house, I make the quick left turn, I'm in my bedroom, and I would say 90% of the time that I'm in my house, you're gonna find me in my bedroom. You're like, don't you use your living room? Well, when I feel like it, I said, but no, I have a TV in my room. I have everything that I need. I will stretch out on the bed, watch TV, and just, Patrick used to look at me and say, so, Mom, are you chillaxing? And I was like, chillax. And I think it was either Patrick or his brother. I think it was Patrick. Was like, the word we used around our house was chillax. I was like, what does that mean? I'm chilling and relaxing at the same time. And I was like, yeah, so I enjoy, or if I'm outside cutting the grass or, doing a project around the house, people are like, but you're working. No, I'm recharging.
Right,
this is my reset. Or, doing, crafting, or something. So again, it is, acknowledging, who is your support system? Who are those, there's a few people that I have on speed dial. I was not surprised, the different messages that I got from certain people that said, I know today, today might be rough for you. I'm here if you need me. Hey, love you, thinking about you today. And what I love about that, it wasn't the immediate, today is going to be rough.
Right.
It was acknowledging the potential. Hey, I'm thinking about you just in case.
Yeah, but my neighbor, she's the good one for me when it comes to those days. Is she'll call mental health check. where are we at today? And if I didn't answer the phone once during it, we usually talk once or twice a day. If I didn't answer the phone, and she has a really bad bum knee, she would hobble over and break the door down, if I wasn't answering. So it's you have to know and have your support people.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Let's see our next one. This is our fifth one. Find ways to remember and honor your person. And as I was putting this slide together, I was like, I just felt that it's very fitting. To include Patrick and Bobby's picture on that particular one. How you choose to honor the person that that's no longer with us, depending on person. And I was like, I should have put Aiden's picture on there as well. But like one of the ideas that they put on was like lighting a memorial candle. Not all of us are into candles. But it also says, invite, whether it's, children or other family members, to share memories as you light them. And even if you're not lighting candles, again, like if I think about, us getting together, whether it's a birthday or Christmas or whatnot, or, the lost, the lost date, let's, what do you remember most, or what is your fondest memory that you have? I remember when he did this here, and we laughed our butts off. Or I remember when he did this, and was I ticked? Writing a card or a letter to the person, putting it somewhere special, or burn it to turn your words. When I look at the writing a letter to the person and burning, that is a strategy that, oh my gosh, I forget when I learned that. I'm thinking of, career-wise, even before I, entered, because I've been in this career for a long time. But it was like, here's the things that were unsaid. And I would be like, write a letter, put it in an envelope, and then burn it. And as you're burning it, of course, you see the embers, the ashes and whatnot, the smoke going up. Just think of it as the person that you weren't able to have that conversation with. That smoke and ash and embers and is that person is receiving.
It's carrying it's carrying the information, the message to them.
This one where it says write memories on strips of paper and create a paper chain. I
think that would be a good kids activity.
Well, and thinking of that as a kids activity, and think about it, if I can, I think I saw it as I was doing the last week's show. We'll do it as an asset one day. The children, I don't know whether it was Father's Day, his birthday, and this is going back a couple of years, did this thing where it looked like a sun. And in the middle of the sun, they had a picture of Patrick in the middle of the sun. And, like they had the rays of sun, strips of paper that created what looked like the sun rays. And on it, they wrote like different words to associate them with Pat. And I was really struck by one of the words. They had, the things that made sense, funny. But one of them they put hungry. And I was like, hungry? Like, where? And I forget which one of the kids, came up with, had thought of the word hungry. And they were like, Nana, he was always hungry. Like, he was always talking about, I got to get something to eat. I'm ready to, or I would think, I was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, Pat, are you hungry? And he would be like, I can always eat. So yeah. Hanging a special decoration outside in memory of your person, such as a plant or a flag.
I do that all the time because I have Bobby's memorial garden, and I change. There's an oak tree in the middle of it that actually the oak tree died, but when we cut it, we left it like 12 feet tall because it has these plants growing up it, and so every season or holiday, I change the little decoration that I hang on a tree. So we got 4th of July coming up, so I got a a wreath that's red, white, and blue, metal stars. Valentine's Day, I have a big heart, that I put on there. A wreath at Christmas time. So I do that all the time.
Buy a gift the person would have liked and donate it to charity. Here's what I do, okay? Anytime that I'm somewhere and I see something that is monkey themed, because Patrick, his nickname was My Little Monkey, I will buy it. And no, it doesn't get donated to charity. It's like I need another monkey in my house somewhere. Right. But I will buy things that are that are either themed. It's either like a stuffed monkey, or I have plates that are shaped like a monkey. Or if I'm in the fabric store and I see a monkey printed fabric, I was like, oh, I've got it. What am I going to make with it? I don't know. But it's a monkey. Greg had bought me a sock monkey cup, and I looked at it and I was like, what's interesting about that sock monkey cup? And I, went to where I have all of my monkey stuff, and I was like, I have that same cup. So I have two of these monkey cups. But still, and even having other people in your life, your support people that whenever I see something that has a monkey, like he brought me a monkey from NASA.
Right.
But yeah. Setting up a special memorial place at the table during holiday meals.
Our family has always done that. We even have a special plate for the people that we have lost. We do that
or even if we don't do a memorial, place at the table, again, the kids will be like, oh, let's have a Corona for Pat. Right. Let's have a, this is Aiden's favorite meal. Let's have this in memory of him. Create a memorabilia table or corner where you can place photos, stuffed animals, toys, cards, food, and other memento. Oh, it's like food. In my house, it's my pot shelf in my living room where his urn is. I have the urn, and then I have the flowers that were on the casket, and then I have the basketball that his friends in Kansas did. But I also have his, a deck of his cards, his dominoes, his favorite cologne. So yeah, it's almost like people are like, what? And I said, no, that's my shrine, to Pat. Food could be an excellent inspiration for memories. Make your person's favorite food. Again, for me, it's the yearly, I'm going to have a barbecue on his birthday. Because that was, what was Pat's favorite food? I mean, food. Food. I can think of things that he didn't really not like. But I also think of, again, as I'm going through his stuff, I found this recipe that he made for lasagna. And there was this thing in my house, with my family. It's like, oh, Nana makes the best lasagna. All right, they're biased. But he made lasagna once, very differently than the way I make it. And I had to acknowledge, y'all like my lasagna, but the lasagna that Patrick made was really, really good. And so I tell myself one day, I've got to find that little notebook that has his lasagna recipe in it and make it one day and say, I'm making lasagna your way as a remembrance.
Well, we have, Bobby made this dipping sauce, and I made it one year. I gave the recipe to my to the rest of the family. But for us, again, I'd mentioned that on our anniversary, we would go in on the Gulf. And the first year, actually, that Bobby had passed away for the 4th of July, my thinking was, well, we love to barbecue. We always barbecued, so I barbecued. This is where you need to remember to take it easy.
Yes.
Because it was the first barbecue that I did on my own, 4th of July, just 3 months after Bobby had passed. And I was on the phone with my sister-in-law, and I turned to go into my house. 25 years I go in and out that door, and I missed the step, and I broke my leg.
Isn't that?
So Cage, if you could pull up the two. These are my two nieces decorating my cast. I had a cast from my toe to my hips. And yeah, that was me 4th of July. So they came and they decorated my cast. There's them. See, that's how big that cast was. And then I tell you what, it weighed almost as much as I weighed. But they were so cute. It was their idea that they wanted to come and they had to decorate Aunt Tammy's cast.
And you know what's interesting about this picture as I'm looking at it, I've heard you talk from time to time about how big the cast was. And I was like, OMG, now to see it, it's like, that's really a long cast.
Well, and the idea was the doctor, and I'd never done anything like this, I didn't want to have a rod put in my leg because he was going to put a rod from my knee all the way down to my ankles. And I had to sit there for like 3 months. The only thing I could do was get up and go to bed, get up and go to the bathroom. And my neighbor had to take me to the doctor every week to get an x-ray to make sure my bones didn't move.
Gotcha. Well, let's pop our quote up really quickly.
Yeah, let's get our inspirational quote for the summer. Talk to your loved ones as if they were still around. The truth is, they are.
Absolutely. I think we all believe that.
Yeah, I do. Especially when I randomly find an empty Budweiser beer can in the yard.
Well, the reminder of our numbers, and as we close out every show,
remember, there's always hope.